I just got done watching She Said. This is about the New York Times reporters who break one of the most important stories in our generation, a story that helped launch the Me Too movement and shatter decades of silence around the subject of sexual assault in Hollywood, and specifically the takedown of Harvey Weinstein. This is directed by Maria Schrader, who I love. I think she's such a phenomenal director, and to actually see her to get a film like this, I think is very important, specifically in the time that we are still in and still feeling a lot of this presence. And it stars the likes of Carey, Mulligan, Zoe Kazan, and truly enough may feature some of their best performances yet. Before I start diving into this movie a little bit more, I do want to let you guys know to make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, as well as comment down below your guys' thoughts. I'm very interested to hear your thoughts on this one, because some people I've talked to love the messaging, love the importance of it, but found it a little bit messy, and some other people have absolutely loved it. I'm somewhere in the middle, where I understand the importance of it. I still see some of the issues within the film itself, but overall, I think the performances absolutely outperform everything and rise this film to that next level, and I found this movie to be honestly really good, and I think it's a must-watch, specifically in the way that its phenomenal performances play out, because Zoe Kazan and Carey Mulligan play the New York Times reporters who broke this story, who brought it about, who did the research, who found out everything they needed to do about Harvey Weinstein and the people that he sexually assaulted, and even the payoffs and everything of that nature. And before I started doing this review, I went and looked up all the different facts, all the different articles, made sure to reread everything that they had posted, and to see how you can actually see this come to life and certain things in here, the way that they actually recreated those interviews and recreated certain elements, are some of the hardest things to watch, but it's something important to see, because as much as I'm intertwined into this movie sphere and to the critical nature, you know, this is still an issue going around. This is still an issue going about, and to see, I think this is the importance to see of what this movement did and how much research actually did to it, and how this research is important to show all of this. And I love, because when you get the attention to detail in each and every one of the scenes and then go read the factual stuff that happened, it feels one for one. And I think that's something important to see with Maria Schrader and what she was able to direct and accomplish in here, because her directing does rise above everything else. Because and I'll say this, I think the script, kind of diving into my cons, it can be a little bit messy and a little bit repetitive at times, but I understand why they went with that. And I think Maria Schrader makes each and every one of the sequences in here very important to watch, as well as feel and understand. And that's, for me, one of the biggest important cruxes of this entire movie. And I think this movie is going to strike a lot harder for the women demographic. And that's completely awesome to see. And specifically seeing that the two characters in here that Carey Mulligan and Zoe Kazan play are mothers. Mothers who are doing this so that their kids don't have to grow up in a world, hopefully, that is run by abusers and are letting abusers get away with what they're able to. And I think that's a great reminder to see that it's two mothers that took down Harvey Weinstein, in a sense, and started the Me Too movement and got the word out for all these different victims. And again, it's a great thing to learn and a great thing to see. And their performances are phenomenal. Carey Mulligan should have won Best Actress last year for Promising Young Woman, or maybe it was the year before that. Whenever she was nominated, she absolutely should have won. That was still one of the best performances. But I think she's also great here. But for me, Zoe Kazan is the standout in here. I love her in The Big Sick, but this is hands down her best performance. There are moments in here where I got very intertwined with her entire story, and the way that it kind of just ripped my heart out, specifically seeing how the lengths that they go for, the threats that they felt on their lives. These are things that Maria Schrader is able to develop and show within the movie in a very intimidating way, and how powerful certain people will be to kind of hush everything. And the interviews and the discussions they have with people in interviews about the abuse that they handled, and the certain things and the revelations that you find out about these and how they were paid off, it's scary. And it makes you wonder what is still not shown out in the world. What is being hidden out there that people know about but they can't discuss for certain manners. And I think She Said is an important representation of that. And it's phenomenal to see in a film because it's that big reminder. But it doesn't feel like one of those films that just bonks you over the head and hits you over the head multiple times and telling you, this is important, this is important. It's one of those stories that's kind of like Spotlight, which is a film that won Best Picture that I love. And I found that film, while handled maybe a little bit better in the script department, to do kind of the same important manner and representation of what She Said does. making sure to remind you that this is still an issue that's constantly going on today. And it's an issue that it feels like maybe it was just a couple years ago that this happened, but they're still feeling the lasting effects of it all. And that there are countless other people like Harvey Weinstein out there who had done this. And I think the importance of this film rises above any big issues that I could personally have with the movie. And I think that's one thing to look at it. And sometimes when you watch a movie, you have to differentiate two things. And maybe I'm being a hypocrite on saying this, and maybe you won't be able to. Maybe you can differentiate both things, but one thing's going to weigh harder than the other. I weigh more on sometimes the importance of something and how riveting it was to me on that part than certain issues that I might take into a story. And that's one thing to look in here for me, is how important this story is, but also how riveted I was through each and every one of the sequences and the way that it was directed and acted in, and how heartbreaking it was to watch some of these sequences and some of the shattering. But I also love how Maria Schrader really doesn't, it's always from the perspective of the woman. And certain voice things and certain tellings of these stories, it never shows the acts that Weinstein did, which a very low-profile director who maybe is not as talented would very much just have shown that. But to hear the horrors of it were the more important aspects of this entire story. And again, I was impressed to see that they handled it that way, in a very gracious way. Now, I do want to kind of get back to my cons, because I feel like there's two things that hold this film back from being like one of the best films of this entire year. First, like I mentioned, the script gets a little bit overly repetitive, as well as just, it's missing one element to it. And if it wasn't for Carey's performance, even Zoe's, I find that I wouldn't have felt very much emotional weight towards their characters. That is the one thing that I wish they would have, if they wanted to make this film as long as it is, or maybe even a little bit longer, I would have liked a little bit more character development for both of them. I understand that they were mothers, I understand what they were sacrificing, but there's some stuff in there that I feel was missing. And I couldn't fully emotionally get invested in them as a character, but as a performance, I easily could. Other thing to go about that is the pacing of this movie does hit. At one point, I looked at my phone thinking, okay, this movie's probably about to be done, and there was still another hour left. Again, runtime, pacing can all be different for every person, but for me, I definitely felt it in this story. Hands down, I think She Said is a must-see movie in theaters. It's a phenomenal watch that's riveting from beginning to end, even if the pacing can be felt. It's a story that I think needs to be seen as well as needs to be heard again, because this is still a prevalent issue in Hollywood, even though I don't see the Me Too movement really continuing further. And while, again, there will be arguments had to be said that there have been people who have been accused of all of these certain allegations that when you do go back and to look, some of it is false. A lot of it could also be false. But in cases like this is where the facts and everything that is important to see how much research they did to bring this to life and to show that there are still powerful people out there doing this same exact thing in today's standards, and that it's still a prevalent issue, I think is the most important thing about this. And it's honestly a timeless story that is very important. So with all that said, I'm going to give She Said a B+. Thanks so much again for watching this, guys. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, comment down below your guys' thoughts, and of course, until next time, stay classy.